Do. Let's talk.
Hi, Radioheads. You know I'm Mel Man. I'm here with Mark Bradford. He created a dating site, a card game. He's the author of Upside Down, The Sword and the Sunflower, and a book on success and being happy, which I really want to get into. So, hi.
Well, hi there.
So, all right. The Sword and the Sunflower. It features a girl who lost everything. Now, in life, many of us have bottomed out, felt like we lost everything. At one point, I lost the ability to walk. I lost the ability to enjoy life. I had back pain that was super debilitating. I couldn't even walk across the room. At the same time, I'd ended a 3 year relationship, moved from what felt like a palace to a really small, confined space. I also gained 20 pounds in under 2 months. So life was kind of hard. I had enough money to eat, so there I had that going for me. Three
That's a
tires
plus.
popped on my car. But anyway, enough about me. Oh yeah, my friends moved out of the country too. All of my friends were international. So
Yeah,
I
yeah.
felt like I lost everything. Here's the question. What do you think are some of the benefits to losing it all?
Yeah, that's a good question. And first of all, I'm sorry that that happened to you. I can actually relate on the people moving away. Like a lot of my friends are in other states, which is really annoying. My son moved to
Yeah.
Germany. Thank you very much, universe. And so that's really annoying. Um, I think one of the first things you get from that is that just like the song, which I did a reel on, is you don't know what you don't have until you lose it. Like you don't know what you had. There are
Hmm.
a lot of people who take a lot of things for granted, and I'm not saying you took stuff for granted.
A little.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's not hard. I mean, when
Yeah.
stuff starts to pile up in life, you start to do that. And, there's a positive side to taking things for granted because we should have that. We should have the ability to have the person in our life who loves us very much to not question it every single day. So that's you're kind of taking it for granted. I guess there's a fine line. But
Mhm.
to belabor the point, I guess, yeah, first of all, when you lose stuff, you're like, oh, I had that. Oh, that's kind of cool. I think I
Yeah.
want that again. Right. And then the second thing that you have is this clean slate. And I mean, I guess I would compare that to if you have this clean slate, it's like someone says, can you write a book on something that makes you happy?
Okay.
Okay. Or you can take my crappy book that I've already written and rewrite it to make yourself happy. So it's kind of like if your life had all these things going on that were wrong and everything's gone, you have a clean slate to start from that. You can kind of go, okay, well, now that I don't have
Yeah.
anything, I don't have any expectations, I don't have any, well, I had this, I'll just build from nothing.
Yeah, I kind of did. And I also moved to New York from DC after 10 years right after. So I did really restart.
Dang,
Yeah. So that was interesting. All right,
you go,
moving
girl.
on. Because
Yeah,
this is more of a rapid fire since we only got 20 minutes. We could go on for 90 minutes. Now, you wrote Alchemy for Life, Formulas for Success.
yeah.
Now, everyone has, well, many people have things they want to achieve, but many just never bring their fantasies into life. So just texting and correspondence can eat up your entire day. I've had many days with weeks just gone text and correspondence, and I barely even got anything done. So, what are a few behaviors you recommend removing or adding to become highly productive?
Yeah. And so obviously highly productive is subjective because we can do things that are highly useful but not productive or highly productive but not enjoyable. Just like if you're an
Mhm.
artist, if you have the creative side of your brain firing, you can do things that people would say, well, that's not productive at all. But then a month later, you're like, oh yeah, I'm glad I kept doing that over and over again. Now I get it. Now I produce this beautiful thing. Having
Mhm.
said that, I'm sorry for this complex answer.
I like
I
it.
like I like to take steps back from things versus going, okay, what's 2 plus 2? Well, hold on. So when it comes to just removing things, you sort of do yourself a disservice by saying, I'm not going to do this anymore. I'm not going to do this anymore. It worked for Bill, it must work for me. But instead, I say that life is made of three things: time, energy, and resources,
Mhm.
period. And you can wrestle me if you think that there's something else, but I'm going to win. And I always envision that people have this flask. They wake up in the morning and it's filled with this swirly liquid. It's filled with time, energy, and resources. And you spill a little bit out for your hobbies. You spill a little bit out for the person you're dealing with, for your job, for the other stuff, for emptying the dishwasher. And sometimes you're like, oh, it's 7 o'clock and it's empty. Great. And so like you're completely exhausted, right?
Mhm.
So managing that is very important before you do anything else, your time, energy, and your resources. And so to give you something useful, I guess, for my long-winded answer, I would say um, people a lot of times will say, well, how do you have time for that? Like they'll say that to me all the time when I'm in my hands and all this stuff. Well, it's not about time, it's about energy. That's what the question should be. How do you have the energy for that? Because if you want to come home and, let's say, again, using the book as a metaphor, you come home and you're like, I'm going to write this great novel. Okay, well, I get home, I have 3 hours. That's 3 hours of writing. Why didn't you
Right.
write? Why did you stare at the TV and watch The Bachelor and drink a glass of wine? Because you're exhausted, because you don't have any energy. And so you need to change that stuff first. If you have a job that's exhausting you and you can't get your project off the ground, maybe you need to change your job or change your job duties, or maybe dating isn't working because you're just not in the frame of mind. You just don't have any energy for it, or you're not truly making time to go on dates and things like that. So I guess I would start there first.
And I would say, to add on, check the cost benefit ratio of everything you do. So if the costs outweigh the benefits, maybe make those things lesser. Like I'm a little tired, but I did take care of my energy yesterday. So we were able to do this interview today.
Cool.
But I could have taken care of my energy a little bit more, and then I have a little bit more spice maybe right now.
Oh,
what are you gonna do?
All right. So. Well, I rate your spiciness at an acceptable level.
Thank you. Thank you. So moving on, you created a dating website.
Yeah, I did.
In my 37 years, I communicated with 2 guys on one dating site. This was like back in 2013. I met up with one, and we stayed in touch for, well, I guess we lost touch because he moved out of the continent, but we stayed in touch for 6 years. So I guess it was a successful online date.
Yeah.
I just intuitively knew it would be a match just from photos. I was like, okay, this is going to be great. Now, what dating advice do you have, since you create a dating site, for properly selecting a compatible mate date?
Yeah. So again, I'll back up. So you knew that because in 7 seconds, we decide whether we like someone or not. We have the nature, the nurture, the evolution, all that stuff that allows us to magically sweep a room in Starbucks, let's say, and go, I like that person, I like that person. All the stuff that comes into play is absolutely amazing, and dating sites will take credit for that. There's no algorithm, there's no matching thing. None of that stuff does anything. That's why they all use the same little tiny picture, and you go, I like them, I don't like them, I like them enough to read more about them, and so forth. I wrote a book called The Status Game and The Status Game 2, and now The Status Game 3 is going to come out, and it basically explains how we connect. And we connect in one of 3 ways besides that initial spark, because you have to have that spark. Like if you didn't have any spark with the guy, you're like, oh, Bill, Frank, a lamp, I don't care. You need to actually go, oh, hello. And so when you have that initial spark, you then make 3 kinds of connections. It's either going to be an additional physical one where you're like, man, this guy's so hot. I hope that there's something on the inside that matches the outside, right? Or you connect intellectually where you're like, I really respect this person. They're really, really smart and funny and all that good stuff. And then the third one is sort of a spiritual thing. And it's not really religion or spirituality, although it could be, but it's sort of like, wow, they have such a good heart. They're such a good person. And then the other stuff flows from that. If you make 2 connections of the 3 that I just said, you're probably going to seriously want to not let that person go. And if you can somehow make all 3, man, you should do whatever you can to keep that person in your life. So having said that, I think getting past that initial spark, you kind of want to figure out why you're connecting with someone. And I have a longer answer, and I know this is rapid fire. Can I expand or?
Yeah, we got time.
Oh, okay, cool. So the premise of the Status Game 2 is that in front of us, we have a dashboard like a car. So in a car, you have a dashboard, which is throwing all this stuff at you. And the biggest gauge is the most important one. It's the speed. That's the thing that'll kill you. And then it goes smaller and smaller and smaller, but they're still on there. I envision that we have a dashboard for people we're attracted to. And the bigger the gauge, the more important the thing is. So some women, height is huge with them, no pun intended, right? So and there's a reason that's kind of a false gauge for women, because it's more about security, but they go for height. And you can go have a glass of wine with Marcy, and she's complaining again about the guy that's an a-hole again, but he's tall. And she can't see the fact that she's simply going for tall guys and doesn't care whether they're a-holes or not. So we have these gauges that attract us to people. You may, because of your last relationship, kindness is really important. Loyalty, the ability to hold down a job. when you're younger, you meet this guy with long hair and he has the soul of a poet and he always just sits there and plays his guitar, but never really cleans up. But oh, he's so wonderful. And then you have kids and you're like, dude, you need to get a job. It's because suddenly your gauges change because of the importance of things in your life. So once you kind of figure out your gauges and what's important in your life, you'll start to see the patterns of who you go for, even though they're kind of invisible, and you'll start to go, oh, okay, I get this. And the big thing I would say is don't beat yourself up. The gauges don't lie. There's nothing wrong with what they tell you. They are what they are.
Yeah, and it is interesting how sometimes people say that you have to go through a few months or years with one type to make you appreciate the next type. Yeah.
Oh, right. Absolutely. People change dramatically when they get divorced. They go, I know what I don't want.
Yeah.
And so they'll typically go for people who exemplify the things that they didn't get from the last relationship.
Yeah, definitely 1,000%.
Wow, thank you so much for those.
Okay, so now we're going to go away from dating. Now, The Sword and the Sunflower book forces the reader to question existentialism, world structures, and religious fervor, in your wording. Now, living a life just based on the pharmaceutical lies is definitely one reason countless humans, maybe even millions, are depressed, out of shape, needlessly take antibiotics. Even taking antibiotics once a year is too much, but it's very common. What do you think people must question to live a life based on truth?
So first of all, thank you for that. That was actually the first review I got of The Sword and the Sunflower quite some time ago.
Cool.
It is. So what I would say is the things that people need to question is just simply everything. You really need to question everything. And I mean that in a really good way. And that's what I try to do with not only my books, but my podcast, is like to get people to look at things the way I keep seeing things, which drives me nuts. I see them from an angle most people don't. And I like to question things because you get into tunnel vision where you're like, well, I didn't know I could kind of do that with it, or I didn't know this was adjacent to it. And you don't get that way unless you ask questions. And so I think it's good. People are so afraid to ask questions because they don't want to challenge the superiors or challenge, common knowledge and so forth. But things that we believed in the 1900s are absurd now. I mean, look at, Copernicus and everything else about the paradigm shift of the earth being the center of the universe, or the fact that like washing your hands was a silly thing before surgery. Things like that. We just need to like keep questioning that. And I think it just sharpens your mind, and it gives you more intellectual control over your life. So I guess I would say everything.
I'm glad that they questioned the abacus, because maybe we wouldn't have the calendar. And some of my friends it's just like an abacus. It's like they're very difficult to count on. Anyway, back to the dating sites. Now, according to my dating friends, I really don't have much experience with dating at all. I hear that sending risque photos within the first week is very common. Now, do you think that people should keep photos, which they say it says 1,000 words, so I don't know what how many words a video would say. Do you think that people should keep things professional in the first week or two, or just send those risque photos and video?
Yeah, I like that you said a friend says, so you're insulated against that. So that's
cool. It's not me.
No, I'm kidding. I'm giving you a hard time. So I guess again, the problem with that is not in the first week or so sending pictures. It's you should have already met. So, and I know people have busy schedules and they're up and comers and movers and shakers and all that other cliche stuff, but you should really try to meet the person as soon as possible. And it has nothing to do with being desperate, because if you're hungry, you're not going to go, well, maybe on Thursday I'll have something to eat. No, you're going to eat dinner tonight, because it's a necessity and it's important in your life. And so that should be the same level of importance. You should be like, well, I really connected with this person. I want to meet them. Because one of the things that happens is the longer you wait to meet them, the more you're going to start texting. The more you start texting, the more your brain's going to fill in all the spaces with the best possible outcome. So if somebody starts talking naughty and 50 Shades of Grey, you're going to start filling it all in and go, oh, baby. And then you meet the person, you're like, oh my God, I had that conversation with them. So you really should meet them sooner than later. And then as far as the photos, it does seem inevitable. Like this is what I run into all the time, even with like very professional, sensible women. They're like, hello, here's the girls. And you're like, okay, then like, it's really surprising. It's really surprising. And I just say people want to earn that. Like I want to earn that. Like I think
Right.
that I want to move through the levels. I'm happy to tell you, all these things or find out all these things about you, but I want to take it step by step at a time. So
Mhm. Yeah,
so
that advice is very similar to mine. I have a lot of friends that confer with me with dating, and it seems like all of them they get in this texting thing for days, weeks, even months.
yeah,
And so why are
that's
you
absurd.
wasting and they might be wasting the equivalent of 2 days of their entire life just texting someone. But my rebuttal to that is basically you don't know what they smell like. The body smells and the pheromones you can't get through text. And I remember this actually happened to me a while ago. I met the guy in person maybe a few times, and I was like, oh, maybe we could date or be boyfriend and girlfriend. I don't like the dating thing. So I had gone on a shoot out of state, and I probably texted him for several days back and forth because I'm stuck on a shoot. So I had all this free time. So I just got into the texting. This was almost 10 years ago. My
Okay.
MO was much different. I don't text now.
Yeah, yeah.
And when I met up with him, he smelled in a way that just wasn't compatible and it grossed me out. And it's like, you don't know what someone smells like, so don't text them. Texting is such a waste of time. So I always say just text enough just to get enough information to know if you want to meet them or not,
Right.
and then just go meet them.
I'm thrilled you mentioned smell because that's such an important thing to me because it tells me a couple things. If they smell weird or they wear perfume that's like old lady perfume or something, I'm like, if you think that smells good, then there are
Mhm.
other things you think smells good that don't smell good. And I don't want to go in your house because it probably smells like a bird cage or whatever. No offense to bird lovers, but it's like I can't exist around that or in a bathroom that
Right.
has like that smells like that or whatever. That's such an intimate thing. I mean, we communicate so much with scent and it means so
Mhm.
much to us. And people are just like, no, most men are like these knuckle dragging Cro-Magnons that oh, you smell pretty, but they don't get the nuance of why they find this person attractive.
Right.
And that's
And
one
it's
of the
not
reasons.
even, see, the perfume thing and the cologne I could deal with because you can fix that. But what I'm talking about is I actually made this person jump in the shower. Man, if he sees this, and he still got out of the shower and he still smelled, it was like his smell just wasn't compatible with my smell. When I have a body odor, I'm not saying I smell like
No.
cotton candy all the time. It's, certain things will work with me or not. My bad smell works for certain people, but my bad smell maybe is too bad for certain people. And
Oh, I
his
agree.
his good smell just didn't work for me. So yeah. Final question. Final question. Writing books, it definitely requires the discipline to produce, even on days where the motivation is not there. Unless, or else it might take you several months or years if you're not producing on days where you just don't want to do it. You got to do things on days you don't want to do it. So,
Right.
what advice can you give to people to consistently to create on days where you don't want to work, maybe at least a few days a week? I'd say that's pretty consistent.
Yeah.
So how would you stay consistent and stay motivated and energized and to speak more clearly than me right now?
I think you're fine. And I'm actually struggling to make sure that I'm concise too under the time constraints because I have like a billion things to say on this. So
Yeah, we'll make this the last like 2 minutes.
yeah. Okay. So I would say, first of all, exercise the writing muscle. And so I had a rule for myself when I first started writing that 7 in the morning to 8 in the morning, I would write. And it would have to be something, not an email. I ended up going on Quora and writing all these articles and all this stuff, but just write. And don't beat yourself up if you don't feel like writing. I know that's the opposite of what you think, but if you force yourself to write and you write garbage, you're just going to be mad at yourself. And
Okay.
you kind of have to respect it. And the biggest thing I say for people that stops them from writing is you have to give yourself a license to write, because writing more often than not, even when it's for work, feels like you're screwing around. Because when you're in the zone and you're writing, especially if you're writing fiction, you're like, dude, get a job, grow up. And it's like, it's
Right.
just that part of your brain that says you're kind of enjoying this. I don't know if you're working or not, man. So you just have to give
Mhm.
yourself that license to allow yourself to write and to carve out that time.
Hmm. Okay, so the final question or
Okay.
final thoughts. What are your final thoughts for society and listeners of It Came from the Radio?
I guess I would say, first of all, if they enjoy listening to you, they should make it known. There's so many people out there that listen to podcasts and everything else, and they don't rate them. So they should really, they should find you on Instagram. They should follow you. They should comment on your stuff, and they should rate you if they like this, because it
Yeah.
takes effort to do something like this, to be consistent and to have interviews and to produce content. And there are a lot of people out there who are like, oh, I love that. Well, did you
Right.
rate it? Well, no. So I guess I would tell them, first of all, to
Right.
appreciate your time, because I think it's really important.
Yeah,
So
rate it, comment. I try to do that when I really like something. I'll try to say something really nice instead
yeah,
of just glossing over it.
yeah,
It
yeah,
does add up, and it helps the algorithm. And if you don't like it, I actually like to hear that too. I welcome that.
absolutely. It's wonderful to actually hear, criticism that's not horrible, and just criticism that's like, I wish you would do this more. This sort of took away,
Mhm.
stuff like that. That's wonderful to have it, but working in a vacuum is really difficult.
I posted one joke. I haven't gotten too much hate on jokes I posted. I posted one joke and someone commented, "This ain't it."
Oh, that's helpful.
I appreciate it. That was funny.
Yeah,
So, Mark Bradford, thank you so much for being on It Came from the Radio.
you're
And
welcome.
that's a wrap. Back to you in the studio, Mark.